All right, hello everyone. Welcome to our inaugural video series with local entrepreneurs in partnership with the Southern Colorado Small Business Development Center and Startup Pueblo. I'm happy to welcome Heather Graham. She is a Pueblo native, business entrepreneur, and city council person. And my name is Brian Estrada, and I am the executive director for the Southern Colorado Small Business Development Center. All right. So Heather, we have a few questions for you.
Sure.
You have a really unique story. You really started your business in an interesting way, and you're very creative, and I know you are such a hard worker. You're involved in your business every day. So we broken down some questions so you can help other entrepreneurs, and then maybe they can have some advice as they're starting their journey. So tell us what businesses you own and what they are.
So I own Graham's Grill. There's a south side and a north side location, and then I own Ruby's Wine Bar, which is located in the Mesa Junction, right across from the library.
Okay. All right. What made you want to be a small business owner?
So I didn't know I wanted to be a small business owner. I went to college, graduated from CSU Pueblo, and I was working at a restaurant, now one I currently own, and the restaurant got shut down, right? The guy had to move along and do something else with his life, and I had no plan. I mean, I hadn't even opened my diploma from graduating college, like, mind you, because I had no clue what I was going to do. I went for psychology and statistics, but I didn't know what I was going to do with that. And so I was kind of, just coasting along, being a server, and you make good money being a server, right? And I lived with my parents, and so it was easy until I wanted to figure out what I was going to do. So, but then the restaurant shut down, and for 2 months I had no job. I just lived off of my savings and was trying to figure out what I was going to do. Well, when I had worked at the restaurant, I had met some people who helped me start my first restaurant. And so they gave me 40 grand, wrote a check to me, gave it to me. And I was trying to find a place to go into, right? And I tried to stay in the restaurant that I was already in, but they wanted to make it into a super salad, so that wasn't going to work. So, 2 months in, I have no job, and I'm just walking around the Riverwalk one day, and I find where my first restaurant started, and it was all turnkey. So $40,000 went a long way for a turnkey restaurant. All the equipment was in, and so, I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to be a business owner, but I had been a manager at the restaurant that I worked at before, and I learned what not to do, right? And so I kind of guided myself and made decisions, but I had no idea what I was doing, and I just jumped in, but I had good staff. I had a lot of friends that worked with me at the restaurant that I worked at, and it was kind of more of a team effort of this is just going to be a job for all of us. And since then, 8 years ago, that's kind of how it's continued, right? I mean, I still cook and work at the restaurants like I did 8 years ago, and it's more of like a co-op between all these other people that work there. I have a lot of people that have worked for me for the whole time, and we have one common goal, and it's open the doors in the morning, let us all make money, and close up at night and continue on. And so that's how I got to be a small business owner.
All right. Well, that's awesome. I knew that you went about your journey a different way than what people normally do. You didn't seek traditional bank financing. The building that you got was turnkey, like you said. Other business owners own that building. I knew that, and then you just made it go. You really opened on a small budget too, from what I understand you telling me, from our history back there. So can you give us a little insight on that 3-year journey? So I know you got the 40,000 from a customer, a regular, and then who did that. But how was that process? Did you pay them money back? How did you get them paid off? Because I know they were out of the business pretty quickly.
Yeah, so we had a note where I would pay them 10% of my profit every month, and so that went on for probably 5 to 6 months. And at that time, I was able to qualify to get a loan, a bank loan, and so my grandpa helped me co-sign at a credit union to get a bank loan, and then I was just able to pay them off. So that was year 1. By year 3, we were on the Riverwalk, right? So it's hard in the winter. You have all the money that you make, you have to save it from the summer to pay your bills in the winter, and it it was hard, and it gets you down because in the summer you're booming with business, and then come the winter you might have 10 customers in one day, and so then you're like, is my business suck? Like, am I not doing a good job? Do people not like my food? What is it? And so throughout this whole process, the original restaurant I wanted had sat vacant for all this time. And so by this time I was married, and we bought a house, and I told my husband, hey, I wanna try to get another restaurant going. Something that's more suitable for the entire year and not so seasonal. And so again, we went back and forth with the people that own it, and again, they kind of brushed me off because by this time I'm like 27 years old, so I'm fairly young, and then they figured out that I was married and that I had another restaurant, and then my husband had a business, and they were like, okay, sign here. And so, but then I needed to come up with funding to get that business started. So I went back to the credit union, and I took out a line of credit against our house. And so that's how I started my second business, and I think that one was $150,000.
Okay.
That was a whole remodel of a restaurant. I mean, you had the big appliances in there, like the hood and the walk-in, but it needed all new plumbing, bathrooms. It had no equipment, tables and chairs, paint. It took $150,000 to get that place up and going. So I had that one for 2 years, and I still have the one at the Riverwalk. And then I'm like, I want to do another one. I don't know, I'm crazy, right? It's just my favorite part about, I think, opening the restaurants is like the before, styling it,
getting it ready, the
picking
decor,
out what you want it to look like, and the envision of it. And so I'm like, I'm gonna look for something on the north side of town. So in 2018, I got the north side Grams, and by this time I had paid off a lot of my original loan, my second loan for my house. And so I was able to go back to the bank and ask for additional financing to cover the Grams 3 location. And that location didn't take as much money because, again, it was more of a turnkey.
Right.
Because it was a restaurant before.
Okay. All right. Then how'd you come about Ruby's?
Yeah, so then Ruby's, so Grams is fun, right? But Grams is a lot of work. I mean, the overhead is high. The food it's a lot to do. A lot of prep work, a lot of staff. And you go to all these cool places in other towns where it's just real simple wine or craft beer or whatever, and I feel like at the time Pueblo wasn't a big, in 2019, really wasn't craft beer, really wasn't wine. We had like one wine bar, and so I had been eyeing this building, that had been vacant for a few years, and so I call the landlord and we go take a look at it, and it was kind of a mess, but I had a vision of, kind of what I wanted it to be, but I knew I couldn't do it by myself because I already had 3 other restaurants at the time, and like that's a lot of work. So one of the people that has worked for me since I opened Grams, I offered her 50% stake in Ruby's, if she would help and take on some of the burden. And so we did. We opened it, and we've been open 3 years, and it's a little gym for Pueblo.
Time flies by too, because that building was closed, and when you took over Ruby's, you changed some of the perspective of the way people eat.
Yeah.
And it's so good to see Pueblo is finally changing and being a little bit more trendy in the things that we do,
Sure.
So you did really good about that. And then the other thing, tell me a little bit more. I know just because we know each other but you always empower women too. So you have the business partner at Ruby's, and doesn't your mother helps you with the other one, right? So you were empowering her in another option as well.
Yeah, so after COVID happened, again, discouraged because the restaurant small businesses were just slaughtered, right? And it was a little bit hard for me I had closed the Riverwalk by this time, but it was still hard to manage both Grams at 50, 25%, whatever was going on, and Ruby's, and try to make money and try to keep people employed at the same time. And so I'm like, my lease will be over pretty soon because I had a 3-year lease, and I'm like, I'm just gonna keep it till my lease is over, and then I'm gonna list it for sale, and not sell it as Grams, but just sell it as a turnkey restaurant. Someone can go in there. And so my mom is a cosmetology teacher at PCC, and then she has a beauty salon, and she's 54 years old, and she doesn't want to do nails, for the rest of her life
Right.
anymore. And she just wanted to get out and meet people. And so she bought half of the Northside Grams from me. And so that's currently what she does day to day. And she loves it, and it gets her out of the house. And she's met a lot of cool people. And it's a change of pace, and she likes to do it. So
See, that's really exciting. And
Yeah.
it's just a different way that you've approached it, because individuals who come and see us at the SBDC are like, we need a bank loan, we need to go through these things, and when we try to educate them that's not always the way that you have to go about, and you did exactly what you needed. Who can invest?
Yeah.
Where can I do? And you knew that you started making money, then you can go get a loan.
Yeah.
So, you've kind of given me some of these, but think of something unique that you want to say about. I have the question listed as, give me a few sentences about opening Graham's Grill. 1, what was exciting about it? What was frustrating, Was it a good experience for you when you were doing it?
Yeah, so, the first one, it was it was scary. It was a good experience, but I think my second restaurant was just like the best feeling, right? I had worked at PT's for so long, and I knew the kind of financial monies you could bring in because of where it was located,
Right.
being one of the only restaurants on the south side. And I knew if it's like build it, people will come kind of thing, right? And so I knew that opening a restaurant like that, the community was going to take it and they were going to embrace it, and that they were going to come there because there's not a lot going on the south side. And so that was exciting, not to worry about struggling through months. You just
Right.
knew that I knew I would have a steady flow of income, and that my business would be able to support itself because I was around houses, I was around people, I knew the clientele that would be there, and I knew that there was a need for the restaurant. So that was probably the most exciting one to open. And it was like, well, what do you think people will want to eat? Is it burgers? Is it what? And at the end of the day, it was just kind of bar food, right? It's a place to stop on your way home, and it's a place to take your family. We're open till 9:00. We're not wild and crazy. It's a safe place to go hang out in the community.
Right, and now you have a patio even. So
And now we
it's
have a
right there.
patio. Yeah.
So you kind of told us why you decided to open Ruby's, because you just wanted to do something different.
Yeah.
But where did you come up with the idea for that particular food? Was it something that you had seen? Was there a market niche that needed to happen that you thought about?
So I had seen, different wine bars just traveling in Denver, California. But the thing with Ruby's is there's no hood, and you can only use certain equipment in there, right? So I wanted to have an H&R license, hotel and restaurant liquor license, because I think that's the cheapest one and it's the easiest one to get, right?
Right.
And so you have to have a pretty good base. You have to serve a full menu to have that. And so I had to find some kind of food that was already kind of pre-prepped and didn't need a lot of cooking. Like I can't cook chicken breasts down there, right? I have to buy cooked chicken breasts, and then we warm them in our oven to 165 degrees in our little pizza oven that we have. And so the menu was, based off what can we cook that's going to be fulfilling to somebody, a good price point for that area of town, because you are in the Mesa Junction, and what's going to catch people's eyes. So the flatbread pizza, that was easy.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. It's so easy to make, and it's healthy. It's healthier than a burger and fries, right? And so I think people are always looking for that alternative. We have gluten-free stuff there. It's just kind of, it's trendy. It's different from Pueblo.
It's very trendy when you go there, and it's exciting to sit on the patio, have your drink, and then you did a really good job with the decor every time I drive by it, and you change the seasons. I always have to email you and say, looking good, stuff like that. Are you going to do live entertainment again in the summer when it comes back around?
So we've been doing the last few weekends. On Friday, we've had, someone come play. We had Jeremy Kitchen, the Cooper Sonics. Next week, we're going to start showing Halloween movies because it'll be a little bit darker out.
Yeah.
So we do have a screen that we put out there, and so that's fun. And we get all ages. Moms bring their kids, and we serve butterbeer, non-alcoholic and people come dressed up. It's cool. It's just something to do in Pueblo, and it's fun.
That's awesome. Yeah. So here's the big question.
Okay.
What do you wish you knew before you got started?
I don't know if it's, what I have, the one thing that it's always really hard for me is, the employee aspect, because I have a problem where I get close, to my employees, and then I get let down, right? Like just recently I had 2 people that worked for me since I opened, and not let down in a bad way, but hey, they went to school and then they graduated and now they're on to bigger and better things, right? And I'm just kind of still left with Graham's Grill, and now I just have to cook more, and so that hurts and that sucks, when that happens. And so now I try to distance myself a little bit, and see it more of like an employee-employer aspect. And I wish I would have kind of done that all along, because I think I would have, saved myself some grief.
Okay.
So I wish I would have. That's one thing that I still work on. I've been trying to work on, but it's hard, right? Because
it is.
It's hard when, I'm younger and I have a lot of younger people that work for me, and I become friends with them, and then they graduate and
they leave
and
you
they
here,
leave me and
like,
they go have their own family, and I'm still like, hey.
You're like, I thought we were close.
Yeah.
What's going on? You
Yeah.
know? No, even as someone who is older
Yeah.
and been in that business, it is hard not to develop relationships with your employees. You're with them so much.
Yeah.
So, but it is a good point to maintain that separateness.
Yeah,
so you're absolutely right.
to maintain it, and so that's always, I've always had trouble with that. So that's one thing that I wish I would have, from day one, been a little bit more of seen an eye opener. Obviously, you wish you would have known. I wish I would have known that we were gonna see this, pandemic that
Right.
that we're still going through. Being a small business owner, yesterday I just had to raise my prices on my menu. It's the 3rd time in 8 years that I've ever raised my prices. And it's hard because I don't want to pass the buck to the consumer, but like at some point it's expensive, and
Yep.
I'm having to pay people $15 to $20 an hour to keep them working for me, because all of the restaurants in town are hurting, and that's what they're having to do.
Right.
And it's hard because you see your profit margin, go down and down and down, and so it's like at the end of the day, you are working to keep the rest of your people employed. You're not working, like, you show up to make sure they have a job. And so that's been hard lately, and it's hard finding people. It's hard figuring out what a good price point, and then it's hard to predict what the future's going to be.
Right. Right.
With
especially in the
inflation.
next few months.
Yeah.
We just don't know what's going to happen with inflation, the way it continues to go, interest rates going up.
Yeah.
I know they're saying that's going to slow down the inflation, but it's nerve-wracking, especially for a small business owner.
Yeah.
And that's really heartwarming what you just said, where you go to work to show up for your employers.
Yeah.
Our employees, not employers. But if other business owners told their staff that's what they're doing, I think they'd also have some more buy-in from employees.
Sure.
Because have you experienced like the major turnover, and do you have a hard time finding staff like other restaurants are having right now?
No, I would say that the people that have worked for me, they genuinely work for years. Like they, it's not a career. Some people I pay a salary, and I
Right.
provide health insurance for them, and it is a career for them. But some people, it's just a stepping stone. And I don't really get the people that work for like a few weeks and then leave.
Okay.
I think people, when they come to Graham's or Ruby's, they kind of find a home there, and they're there until they get their next calling. And so I'm proud of that. I'm proud that we offer a safe and healthy work environment to where people feel like they can stay there. I don't look at myself as like the boss. Do you know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's of course, if something goes bad, right, I have to put like my boss hat on and go in there and yell and discipline
Right.
and whatever. But it's more that you just need to be held accountable, and you hold yourself accountable. And like if I have to get involved, like that's when we have a problem. And so I don't really see that with my employees. Everybody's respectful, so I don't have high turnover. But now that I've lost 2 people that pretty much worked full time for me, just in the last 2 weeks, that's going to be hard to fill. And I know that it is hard to get employees right now, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if people just don't want to work. I don't know if they're still getting some kind of benefit. I don't know if they've become accustomed to living on, one source of income.
Right.
I don't know if they're working from home and they have that choice now. So that part's hard. When we used to file or put out like an application, a job application, we'd get like 20, 30, 40 people coming in and apply and having to do interviews. We're lucky if we get 2 to 3.
Oh, wow.
And
it's a big drop.
It's huge. And what I'm finding is like the people that are my age or just like a little bit younger, like I can't find those people. I am now looking at 17, 18-year-olds. And you have to be careful because they have those, they can work so many hours in a day. And so then that kind of puts a hinder. But I mean, at least they want to work. So that's, and hopefully they'll start out and they'll work for me for a few years while they're in college.
And build that relationship again, so you have that. That's good that you're forward thinking about that. Have you had to change your hours and things? Like some restaurants now close on days that they weren't there.
Yeah.
Some aren't even open when their regular hours are supposed to be, when you think, and you're just like, what happened? And you ask them when you go back and they say, oh, we didn't have a chef that day, or we couldn't do that. Have you experienced anything like that?
So at Graham's, I don't let that happen. If I have to go in and cook, which I cook anyway, but if I gotta go cover a shift, my brother works for me, right? So he's going to work. If we can't open, like, Mitchell, you're coming to work. At Ruby's, just because it's not as busy, we don't make as much, money there. I have cut back the hours there. During the summer, we did days, Wednesday, Thursday, day 2, and we've cut it back and just doing Wednesday, Thursday nights now. And that's because most of my kids that work there are back at school, and it's really hard to train someone to work at Ruby's because you could have no customers, for 2 hours, and then you could have 200 people in there. And so it's very hard to, hey, you got to find stuff to do when you're busy, but then you got to be ready to work when we're getting our butts kicked. And it's hard to find that person who can do that, right?
Right.
And I'm not able to spend as much time there helping out, and so we have cut back our hours there. And it has been hard to hire somebody in that position to where they can do kind of busy or slow work.
Right.
So,
because if you get stuck in that slow mode, it's hard to get out of that. Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. I need a drink of water. So, even though you've been doing most of the talking. All right. So the next question is, what advice can you give to future entrepreneurs about opening a business?
So even when you think it's like the worst day ever, I promise you it's not. I promise you're gonna get through it, and you're gonna look back like maybe 72 hours later and be like, oh, it was good, And then in like 3 years, like sometimes I look back at my Facebook posts from like 8 years ago when it comes up in my memory, and I'm like, oh, I remember this day. It was real bad, and I didn't know how my business was going to make it,
right?
Through the month. And so then I look back and then I think about, oh wow, memories, and I'm like, you made it through, and now you have 3 other restaurants, and you're gonna be okay. But there was like definitely times where I didn't know if I was gonna make enough money to like pay my rent, right? And then it was like, what am I gonna do? I'm a failure. And so I would just, encourage people like, hey, this isn't the worst thing, that's ever going to happen to you. And just stick with it, because that stuff happens, and it's scary. And if you don't have a lot of money, or you're not making a lot of money at the time, like that's a real life stress for the owner, right? How am I going to pay my employees?
Right.
What am I going to do? And so I would just, try to Sarah Martinez, she actually gave me a good, I don't know if it's like a quote or a good thing to live, like 10-10-10. So, 10 minutes from now, 10 hours from now, and 10 months from now. So we always talk about, even within the city, when we're all fired up at something and we want to burn the city down, or, we're so upset, we always tell, okay, think about 10 minutes from now, you're probably still going to be mad. 10 hours, you'll probably still be mad, but like 10 months from now, you're not even going to remember this conversation. So think about how this moment in time right now is going to affect what that 10 months looks like. And so I continuously do that now. And that even like played a role back then, because I was so caught up in the moment all the time that I wasn't thinking,
Right.
clearly. And so I would say, take a breath and think, try to figure out the ways to get through whatever you're trying to get through. And I promise it's not the end of the world.
Okay.
That would be what I would say.
That's exciting to hear, when you think about that. I like the 10-10 thing.
Yeah.
10 thing, I do. And when you think about it, we've all probably been practicing something like that. We just didn't have a name for that.
Yeah.
But the biggest takeaway from what you just said, and this is what I tell entrepreneurs too, is that it's scary, but you have to want to do it.
Yeah.
And you have to stick it out.
Sure.
Because, I have a hard time being wanting to open my own business because of the fact that I'm accustomed to a certain lifestyle,
Sure.
and I'm like, can I live without that?
Yeah.
Can I do those things? And so there's a lot of people who are thinking that way. So you need to think about that,
Yeah.
as well. So that's good advice. Okay, now we know you're a city council person and you're very involved in Pueblo. So now that you've been through this journey, what resources would you recommend to entrepreneurs that are thinking of getting started out here in Pueblo? Because I don't think everybody knows how much Pueblo works for its citizens.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait. Okay. No!
Is it your laptop timed out?
Potentially. Oh, it's dead. Okay. Yeah.
Well, it's on for now.
Go
Okay.
Yeah, so I think over the last, since I first started, I've had to pull 4 liquor licenses, 4 sets of routing sheets. And I think the last time around, Pueblo, it was a little bit more friendlier to businesses, and you have a lot of great things within the city, within the community. I mean, the SBDC, things I didn't even know exist to help you start your business. You could go down to the sales tax office, and the gals down there, or whoever you get at the desk when you go down, I mean, they'll go over a routing sheet with you and tell you, exactly what you need. The city clerk's office is also a great resource for that. If you need any kind of licensing, they'll help you, point you in the right direction. They'll get you set up. We have Pueblo Place now, and that kind of helps you do any kind of licensing, Secretary of the State stuff if you need to register, get your articles of organization. So that's really helpful. All that stuff wasn't maybe as readily available years
Okay.
ago, but it's worked its way, and we're trying to make it more business friendly. We're trying to get into the Wells Fargo building.
Yep.
The Business Means Business Task Force is, I think it's a couple years out, but I think that will be really cool for an entrepreneur to be able to walk in the door and have, all these different entities there to help with your business. And I think the city has some resources to offer now. I don't know as far as financial kinds of things,
Right.
if they point you in that kind of direction or how that works. And your project here does all of that, though,
Yep.
right?
We can help them get prepared for the loans, and then we tell them what funding is available
Yeah.
and out there, because it's hard for a startup. A lot of people are scared now from the pandemic when it comes to a lender. And COVID kind of created some of that where people are aware, there has to be more grant money, and we need to be prepared that that's not always there now, even though the pandemic is still here, we're still dealing with COVID in some aspects. The funding that was available wasn't there as well. So yeah, we work really hard to try to help as many people as we can, and in different stages, and sometimes some ideas may not come to fruition. We've got to change that whole aspect, and we advise them on that too. Yeah. So my biggest question now, and this is where you can just take the floor and tell us whatever you want. Is there anything else you'd like to share? Because you've done so many amazing things in the time that I've known you.
Yeah.
You've always been friendly. You got this idea to do the business, and then you just kept growing. And then when you decided to run for city council, I was like, where do you find the time?
Yeah.
But what else do you want to share to someone, that's thinking about doing this, or just anything in general?
I don't know. Just so I've come to a point now where I feel like this turn being taken in my life, right? Like I enjoy doing city stuff. I enjoy spending my time doing that now. But I also enjoy my businesses, and so I'm at that, you know, that cross point right now. It's like, I wish I could clone myself, because I'm spending like 16 hours a day, you know, just trying to make sure that I'm balanced between the city and then between my 3 businesses, because I still owe, you know, that to my employees and to the restaurants, but I'm finding it. I'm trying to figure out what's the route, you know, I want to take.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to continue the city stuff? But it's kind of funny because they kind of intertwine, right? I mean, in Pueblo, we're having a huge toll with crime, homelessness, trash, and I tonight after this, I'm hosting some small business owners to my house because they're fed up, right? And so they come to me because they know that I have experienced these same kinds of things and how hard it is to be a small business owner and be living in Pueblo right now with damages being done to your business, homeless camping, you know, people laying on the sidewalk in front of your business, doing drugs or, you know, whatever they're doing. And it's like, we don't want to see Pueblo get lost in all of that. Stuff that's going on in different cities in Colorado, and Pueblo's a gym, right? So we need to protect our assets and our businesses and protect our business owners here. And it's like, how do we balance that with kind of what you see going on at a state level, you know, trickling down? And so right now I'm using my, you know, my city powers to try to help and be a voice for the small business community. And that's one thing that I will promise to always carry high, is helping people in the small business community and people like myself and people who are trying to make a difference. I mean, like, even if you employ one person, right, you are that one person's complete financial and their family and their housing. And so it's important to have people who want to be entrepreneurs and have people who want to give other people jobs. That's important. That's important to me, and I think that should be very important to the city, because if we start having these businesses bail out of here because of the shape our city's in, Pueblo's going to be hurting.
Yep.
And where are people going to go to work? You know, that's not some corporate office, or that's hard, right? And we don't want to see our local restaurants have to close up because their places keep getting vandalized. And so right now I'm trying to figure out what that balance is and how I can use my voice to help small business owners. And so I think we're going to make some progress.
Awesome.
You know, people are fed up, and it's kind of scary out there. I mean,
Well, it's good to put it out there. You know, we need to hear that.
Yeah.
You know, because people need to know that there's something there. And it's really refreshing, and I want to tell you thank you just from a citizen, that you're sticking to your campaign promise.
Yeah.
And it was, I'll be here to help small businesses.
Yeah.
And you're doing that, you know, by inviting them to your house and bringing awareness, you know, because you also said something else that I agree with you 100%. People forget that Pueblo is a gem.
Yeah.
You know, we only hear the bad things, but behind those bad things, there are a lot of things, or we wouldn't live here, or like we wouldn't come back if we
Sure.
left, you know, and things like that. So there is that opportunity, but thank you for doing this. You are our inaugural interview for our Startup Pueblo, so we do appreciate that so much. I appreciate your time today. For all of those who are watching here, again, this is Heather Graham, Pueblo native, business entrepreneur, and city council person. And I am Brian Estrada with the Southern Colorado Small Business Development Center. Look for us on these videos for other entrepreneurs as we move forward into the next year. All right. Thanks again, Heather.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes.